Hello, I'm Demis Helen and I'm back with another mini series regarding electronic music and how to utilise some of the new plugins that Cubase 13 offer. And in today's episode we're going to be using the VoxComp, but not in the traditional sense of using it on vocals. So let's take a look and see what's going on. Okay, so here we are in my Cubase 13 project. We're going to be specifically looking at this keys track in this episode and how I've used the VoxComp on there. But first, let's have a listen to the track. I'll skip through a few sections so you can get an idea of what I was going for during the production and arrangement. And then we can get straight on to the juicy stuff in the keys. As you can see, it's a very laid back track. It's got a lot of warmth and a lot of weight to it, but at the same time, a lot of clarity. And that's down to some of the Cubase 13 plugins that I have been using. But today we're going to be focusing on the keys and how I have used the VoxComp on there. So let's just focus in on the keys, and I'm going to focus on the breakdown just because the chords are different and I like them better for this section. So that's the only reason. And I'm going to load up the sidebar by clicking here so we can see our inserts down at the left hand side. And you can see here my chain starts with the Studio EQ, VoxComp, a frequency, which is the EQ from Cubase, an EQ M5, which we'll cover in later videos, a dual filter, and then another instance of EQ at the end. So a very simple layout, but they are all doing a specific job throughout the chain. So let's start by muting or bypassing all of the inserts, so everything is turned off now, and let's have a look at what's being created. So what we're hearing there is a lovely keys preset, but there is tons of reverb already happening within the synth, which gives it that timbre, that tone, and its character, and it fits perfectly for the idea that I had at hand. However, the rest of the track is quite monotonous. It has a flow to it, but it doesn't have any defining character. There's no melody hook or anything like that, so we have to make this a little bit more interesting, and that's where I got the idea of squashing it with some compression, but using the VoxComp because it's just a single dial really, and you just manage your output. So let's take a look at turning this back on whilst it's playing so you can hear the difference. I'll turn it back on when it gets to about bar 53 so you can hear the difference. So now you can hear the keys are being squashed, and then you can hear the compressor opening back out, and it gives the effect or the impression that the volume is rising, which it is, but getting louder and sort of emphasizing the chord where it should be fading out, but it's actually getting more prominent, and it just leads into the next chord nicely on each section. So I'm going to show you what I've done here. So leading into the VoxComp, this is the VoxComp, and there is no preset used. It is literally just 100% wet and then a threshold of -32 dB. So I've really crushed down the whole track, and then I've just balanced this back out using a -2.4 reduction there just to balance it out in the track. So let's have a listen to that and see what is visually happening. So you can see we're reaching about -20. And then you can see the volume just slowly rising back up as the compressor sort of relieves and alleviates what's happening after that initial compression. And I really do think that it does it justice. It sounds really nice. It sounds over compressed, but then when you hear it in context with the rest of the track, and I've got a secondary keys high preset here that's not being squashed as much, adding a little bit of transient and sparkle back into the sound, it sounds really, really nice. So in reality, we could do this with the standard compressor, and I can simulate that right now. But the reason that I've chosen the VoxComp is purely on the basis that it's new and it has a singular threshold control. Everything else is managed for you from the attack, the release, and the ratio. So jumping in here, if we go to the standard compressor, and I'm just going to turn this off, I'm going to go for about -20 again on the dB reduction, and we'll just manage the threshold. But we have to control the ratio, the attack, the release, maybe even the hold, and the makeup gain here. So we need to work with all of them. Let's just have a look what we can do from the get-go. So I'm going to start with a 5:1 ratio, quick attack, and we'll just leave the release here for now. And I'm going to bring it down till we get to about -20. So somewhere about there. And again, that has a really nice sound to it. I do like how it sounds, but we'd have to do a little bit more to it to give it some character. And that's where VoxComp comes in. It's giving it that character, it's giving that swell, but it sounds like it's also saturating at the same time. It's filling out the sound, and it just adds more character. And that's why we use different compressors, different EQs, all that sort of thing, because they add a specific character. So let's just play the first 2 chords with this compressor, and then I'll bypass before bar 53, and we'll play this one with the VoxComp. So I definitely prefer the VoxComp. We could possibly simulate this, because if you listen to how it holds, it seems to compress. It seems to like it holds a little bit and then it releases on a sharper curve. So it gets louder quicker towards the end. So we could use the hold function here to simulate that a bit. But the sound is different. The quality is different. This is nice compressor. It's nice and clean, but the VoxComp just has that extra sparkle to it. So that's why I've used the VoxComp. So let's just delete that compressor and focus back on the task at hand. So I'm just going to show you another way that I've used this, which is on the open hat. I've used it in a couple of places, but the open hat in particular sounds quite nice, and it gives it some space and some character to the sound. So if we look at VoxComp here, we've got a compressor at the beginning as well. So I might as well just open up that so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to turn up the level on the master out. So I'm just going to use Razor. I'm just going to push it up another 10 dB, not -10, 10 dB, so we can hear just this hat because it's lower in the mix. So let's explain what's just happening here quickly. This compressor is just taking the edge off the front, so I didn't want too much of a transient in this track with it being softer, so I've just shaved it off a little bit with the attack and release here, and then just compressed it down, and then it jumps through the VoxComp, which I am absolutely crushing it to its maximum, but that makes that cymbal sound a lot thicker, a lot warmer, and even longer. It holds like a sustained level. So let's have a listen again. All it's doing is bringing the level up of the tail, making it sound longer because it's holding that level a lot higher. And it just sounds softer and nicer to me. And that is a dry wet mix of around 42%. If you go full, it's a little bit too invasive, so you can have a bit of a balance of both. And finally, let's have a look at the piano ARP here as well. I'm using the VoxComp on here. So you can see there's a Roomworks and a stereo delay coming before this. And I'm doing exactly the same process as I did to the keys, but a little bit more sort of relaxed. So we're still getting the same swell, but we're doing sort of -10 reduction instead of -20. And it's just enough to help it swell and follow the lead of the keys as well. So there we are, you can see the piano ARP swells with the keys as well. It works really nice. And what that does is, because they're swelling in unison, and obviously we've chopped off the top end with the EQ to get rid of the artifacting, so it keeps the keys nice and soft and at a lower level, so we're focusing more on the mids. It gives way for the keys arpeggio here to make its way through. So you can hear at each moment it swells before the next note starts. You can hear the keys start to take a bit of a back seat, but then they're pushed back up to the front, and that is exactly why I did what I did in the arrangement and production. So there we are, that is VoxComp used on a keys to create a swelling effect. And obviously this is great for vocals as well, but I want to show it in a bit of a different light and show you how we can use it creatively. So thank you very much for watching, and I will look forward to seeing you in episode number 2. See you there.